Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
It's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings, cretins. That sound like him at all?
Not at all.
Greetings, cretins.
No, that was much more like it. It's much more of a pervy, breathy, like, you know, he's about to die from walking up the stairs type of sound.
It's because that's true.
Yeah. You see, our dear friend... John Palmer is speaking, presenting, doing something at the Master Brewers meeting somewhere. Albuquerque or San Antonio or Argentina. I don't know. Somewhere.
So when he's not on the radio speaking, he's speaking somewhere else. He's just always
guy just
speaking.
won't shut up. Just won't shut up. He's always yakety somewhere. No, I think him and Colin, are going to do some talk on the water book. They came out with the water book recently, and along with that comes talking about the book.
Have you read that book?
I haven't.
You
think I should?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it in the plans? Is there anything in the book that you don't know?
Hey, come on. Yeah, I'm sure there's tons I don't know. Pretty much pick up any book, including one that I have written, and there's stuff in it I don't know.
Inconceivable.
Yeah, there's plenty of stuff. Pick up any book. I'm sure there's stuff in it I have no idea is even in there, including brewing classic styles and yeast.
Stuff you've written?
I'm just really? That? I put that in there? It's like I go back and listen to... we're doing the Brewing with Style shows now, so I go back and I listen to the original Jamil show when we were covering the styles kind of the first time.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I do, I'm listening to this, I'm like, wow, that's really good information, you know? I'm like...
I was good.
Where the hell did that come from? I'm like, I've forgotten so much. I don't know what else I've filled my brain with, but it's certainly, hasn't retained a lot of this stuff. And I knew at one time that was clearly I was on it.
Maybe it's your brain is full, so every time you learn something new, it pushes something you knew before out.
Right, absolutely. So when I watch like an episode of Duck Dynasty, I'm focused on Psy and all that stuff, and then...
There goes Robust Porter.
Yeah, gone. Just emptied. I'm like, I think it's dark.
And there was a Duck Dynasty marathon last weekend, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah?
It's bad for us.
I haven't been doing the Duck Dynasty, the repeats, because I've seen every episode since the beginning. So I don't have to watch the repeats. It's all up here now. I've got it all stored away. I just moved out all that brewing information. Gone. Filled it with Duck Dynasty.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you need to remember all the useful stuff in life.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you're a pro brewer or anything. It's just a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally meaningless. Speaking of totally meaningless. No. Speaking of our fine sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Blickman with 2 N's. They sponsor this show, so you don't have to pay for it. Great folks. I have known John Blickman for quite some time, and he's a brilliant guy, and he uses that brilliance to make some brilliant products. So check him out. Go to blickmanengineering.com and check out all that fun stuff that he has there on the website for you to enjoy. And be sure to go and check out their booth at the National Homebrewers Conference coming up in, where is it? Michigan this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Grand Rapids, right?
Grand Rapids. Thinking of kind of driving around the area a little bit, too. I think that would be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Coming up in June, so check that out. When we just got back from JBF. You didn't.
I did not. How'd it go for you guys?
Good. It's always fun. I love... I'm not into the people that are there just getting drunk for a beer fest, but it seemed like there was a lot of, actual beer nerds there, which I love. And people that are totally into learning about the beers and finding new beers that they haven't tried before, and these new experiences, and lots of homebrewers, and I love that part.
More so than previous years, you're saying?
It seemed like there were more this year in every session, because a lot of the previous years, it seemed like just the members session would be busy with homebrewers. There'd be pretty much just homebrewers there, and the other sessions they'd be a little more scattered. This year, I was standing out in front of my booth, which is what I do. I just go hang out there and then talk to people. And this year, every time I was there, it was a constant stream of homebrewers coming by. So it's fantastic. That I actually really enjoy.
Homebrewers who could articulate themselves, more stumbling?
Or not. I mean, there was a couple of guys that started punching each other in the face.
Oh, really? They had their own personal fight club right in front of your booth?
Yeah, pretty much. Right next to me, like 6 inches away.
Like in earnest, hitting each other? In earnest?
They popped each other pretty good.
Wow.
And then they're like, well, you hit me. Well, you said stuff about me. You hit me. I don't know.
But it was much better this year, though, in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, they ended up just calming down, and it was fine. But no, I love meeting all the homebrewers and just chatting about things that they're interested in and the beers and all that stuff. That's totally cool. That I really enjoy. And then you notice the Brew Strong shirt I am wearing.
Yes.
Which I did not get from the Brewing Network. I got through a listener bought me this shirt.
That's very generous. That's the new design, though.
Yes, because I don't have one. I didn't have one. I've been asking for one for months, and every time I'm here, I look, and there are no extra larges.
Are you new here?
Well, apparently so. I've got the first shirt from the first printing 8 years ago or whenever it was.
Yeah, that's how you know
what I've got.
We're on top of the whole staff here. Doc wears his old red Brewing Network shirt with the first iteration of the logo.
Right,
yeah,
right.
We all got merch in 2006, and we never looked back.
Right, and it's not like I have other choices and I'm going old school. It's because that's the only one I've got. So I've been trying to get one of these new ones, and then I saw a listener. He was walking up in the book area, and I'm like, sweet shirt. I'm like, I wish I had one. The guy's like, well, I'll go get you one. I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, no. I said, if they've got them, I'm sure I could go and talk them out of one. They'll give it to me for free. I said, you don't have to buy one. He's like, no. I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. And Buddy went and got me one. So I can't remember his name, but very nice of him to go and get me the shirt. And I really appreciate it. And I'm wearing it today. So there, listeners got me one. Ha!
Huh. Well, what do you need us for?
Nothing, apparently.
Yeah, your co-host didn't even show up. You got no merch. You got no co-host.
Co-host, I got nothing.
You got no one at your brewery right now?
No, there's people at the brewery.
Oh, that's good.
I got solid people at the brewery.
Good.
It's just the rest of my life that is completely falling apart.
Right. You're going to be like the president of the U.S. You go gray just immediately. You open your own brewery.
Right.
You wake up the next day gray.
Yeah, exactly. The president's always, by the end of the first term, 4 years, they've aged 30.
Yes.
They become withered husks in no time at all. Yeah, brewing is like that.
I remember some murmurings that when President Obama was first elected, it's not going to, sure, it happened all the once, but Obama, he's kind of got a youthful look. He's going to stay that way. Not so much.
He's already looking old, yeah. You look at him 4 years later, and, man, he got jacked up. All right, speaking of 4 years later and jacked up, that means it's a Q&A show today.
Yes.
Palmer isn't here. I figure I can answer all the questions to my own satisfaction, and That should be good.
And I can elaborate with, the amateur guy questions, which I'm sure some of you are dying to hear.
And I am sure the expert answers you can provide, having won the Brewcaster Challenge.
Oh, that's right. I know what I'm talking about now.
Sure you do.
Yeah, I wrapped a T-shirt around my carboy. I'm a freaking expert, baby.
Yeah. So if you like these Q&A sessions, you can send in your questions to brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com. And if you've got a question that can be handled in a Q&A, just title it Q&A question or whatever it might be. If you got a show topic idea, label it show topic. It makes it much easier to go through the 1,000 emails and figure out which ones we can cover and which ones we can't. When we're looking for show ideas or looking for material to go through here. And if you're listening, you can also listen live. You go to thebrewingnetwork.com and there's a listen button. You click on that and you can listen to the live feed and you can chat and ask questions live of Palmer and myself and Scott, the soulless ginger.
I think I prefer Scott the Jew.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Neither's great, but,
Scott the soulless Jew?
The soulless part is what's getting
It's
me.
the soulless that gets you, really?
Yeah. How am I going to get to heaven?
I thought since you don't have a soul, it wouldn't bother you.
Well, I wouldn't have a soul if I was a ginger, but in point of fact, I have brown hair.
Sure you do.
You
can dye it all you want, but you can't cover it up. It's obvious.
I get confused listeners that I run into when I get events and stuff, and they go, "You're Scott, you're not a red." And I go, I know that. Nobody else on my team seems to know that.
Please. You can try and cover it up, but
you're right.
Come on.
You catch my facial hair in just the right sun at the right time of day, and maybe there's a glimpse of red.
Which Grecian formula are you using? Please. All right. Ginger, please. First question.
You want me to read it?
Sure.
Oh, is that what Palmer normally does? Okay, I'll try and read it in a breathy voice.
No, that's wrong.
I used to
trade back and forth.
This is from Kyle Motley. Hey, Jamil, I use the Mr. Malty calculator with every brew I do, and I really believe it has done a world of good for my beers. I had a question on viability when repitching a washed slurry. On the calculator, harvest date is the main function that determines the viability. My question is, if I let my beer in primary at ale temperatures for 3 weeks and then harvested the yeast, would it be the same viability if I had harvested the yeast after 1 week or even 2 weeks? In the yeast book that you and Chris write, well, I remember reading that the yeast is more stable under beer, but I would imagine that letting it sit at room temperature would affect the viability. Is there a rule of thumb to estimate the loss in viability of yeast sitting in primary so I can keep my pitching rates consistent?
It's a good question, and everything that he says in there is, I think, accurate and correct and true. Just storing the beer, the yeast under the beer, that's, a nice, safe, stable way to store it because, if your beer is clean, it's, going to sit and stay there. But you're at warm temperatures, that's not so good for it. So a lot of times when they're talking about storing yeast under beer, they're talking about, well, when you harvest the yeast, you store it with the beer. You're harvesting some beer with that yeast, and that's where it's stored, and it's stored cold in the fridge with a little bit of beer over it, right?
Fridge temperature?
Yeah, and that helps maintain, the viability a little longer, the decline in viability. And the thing he's asking is, all right, so, at room temperature, leaving the beer on the yeast and then, waiting to harvest, what's the change in viability so I can adjust my pitching rate? Well, truth be told, it's always just an estimate. And the viability of the yeast is going to change based off of, what kind of nutrients they've had access to, what kind of beer they fermented, how much oxygen, zinc, things like that. What kind of condition they were in going into the beer, what kind of pitching rate you used, IBUs of the beer, just a lot of little factors that are going to determine, what the viability is at the end. It's generally pretty high, but it could be lower if you stress them out during fermentation or push them, past the limits or start out with not so healthy yeast. At the end, that's going to determine how quickly that initial drop-off in viability occurs. So the only real way to know is to measure viability. You have to get a hemocytometer, some dye, and microscope and look at them and see what kind of viability you're getting.
So that there's no real rule of thumb because there's just too many factors.
Right. There's too many factors. You can say, well, maybe it's 5%, from 1 week to the next. Go with something like that. If I had to ballpark something, I'd be like, okay, 2 weeks in, knock 5 or 10% off, and 3 weeks, maybe 15%.
Does it matter the type of beer it's sitting on? Like, what if it's a stout versus a lager?
That's an interesting question too, because generally, high gravity, more alcohol, higher osmotic pressure, extremely hoppy beers, things like that can have an effect. But you mentioned, stout versus, like a pale Pilsner or something like that.
Right.
Dark beers, there's something about dark beers that affects yeast and their ability to ferment, and may also affect viability to some extent. I don't really know, but that's one of the interesting things that Chris and I have been talking about is how very dark beers affect yeast. So it's interesting you bring that point up. I just knocked 5% off. Everybody always wants an answer, so I'd be like, instead of it depends, but use 5% a week. Let's say that and see how that works for you. I would rather you pitch a little bit more than not pitch enough. So a little bit more is always not that bad an impact versus not pitching enough, which is always a bad impact.
Right. There's never a reason not to just over pitch a little bit, right?
Right. In commercial brewing, a lot of times it's a cost thing versus anything else. So there you go.
You want to take a break and then do the next one?
Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get into more of your questions right after this.
Hi, I'm Jason Harris, the proud owner here at Keystone Homebrew Supply. We're thrilled to be entering our 20th year of supplying this great industry, and to show you, the Brewing Network Army, how much we appreciate your support, we're offering you 10% off your first order on our website, KeystoneHomebrew.com. Just use coupon code BNARMY at checkout, and I'll get your order out the same day. My goal at Keystone Homebrew Supply has always been to have a complete supply of everything a brewer could want. When you place your order online or when you come into our store, it's our goal to have everything on your list and more. One aspect of KeystoneHomebrew.com that we're really excited about is the ability to fulfill customers' exact grain bills. Do you hate to wait? Keystone Homebrew Supply can get your precious yeast and hops to you within just one day if you live between Connecticut and Virginia, and within 2 days east of the Mississippi. KeystoneHomebrew.com. Coupon code BNARMY. I'm Jason Harris, and I approve this message.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in the can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack can.
Are you a member of the American Homebrewers Association? Well, you should be. Members of the AHA can focus on brewing beer, and the AHA takes care of the rest. The American Homebrewers Association advocates on behalf of homebrewers like you to legalize the hobby in all 50 states and make sure that beer laws make sense. Plus, there are many great benefits that come with your AHA membership, like AHA member deals that give you awesome deals at bars, restaurants, breweries, and more. Zymergy Magazine and Zymergy for tons of articles, how-tos, easy-to-follow recipes, and news about the hobby you love, and access to the members-only content on homebrewersassociation.org. But the AHA can't do it without your support. Join today so the American Homebrewers Association can keep fighting for your homebrewing rights. Visit homebrewersassociation.org or join now from the homepage of the Brewing Network website. Relax. Don't worry. It's the American Homebrewers Association.
When you hear Blickman Engineering, think innovation, passion, quality, and customer service. Blickman gear is designed by brewers to give you a sense of pride in your equipment. At Blickman, they know what makes brewing a pain and build gear that makes it fun. Like the intuitive beer gun, a completely different approach to filling bottles. The Therminator Wort Chiller, a new take on a plate chiller that's sized for flow, performance, and the high groundwater temps homebrewers face every day. The Brewmometer, a brilliant weldless thermometer design with brewing parameters right on the dial. The Autosparge, ultimate simplicity for preventing an overflow or running your mash tun dry. And much more, like the modular top-tier brewing stand, conical fermenters, and their Boilermaker brew pots. With more cutting-edge equipment coming soon, keep up with the latest from Blickman at blickmanengineering.com and stay on the cutting edge.
Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters, this is Jamil and Moscow, and I love a bold, hoppy beer, one that spits resin in your face and makes you cry, Uncle. There are a lot of great hoppy beers out there, but at Heretic, we want to make something as bold, dank, and resiny as possible. We use hops at every chance we get, including multiple dry hop additions. The result is Heretic Evil Cousin. This light golden, 8% Imperial IPA has an easy malt character that helps take the edge off the massive bittering, but it takes a back seat to the in-your-face hop character. We make sure this beer finishes dry so the hops can jump out and slam you in the taste buds. If you can't get enough hoppy goodness, Evil Cousin is your cup of tea. Cheers.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're doing a live Q&A show. John, out of pocket, he is off mastering something in somewhere south of here.
Is there anything that guy is not? Is there anything he's not a master of? Like could he drive a car really well?
No,
he sucks at driving.
Oh, he's horrible. Oh, Jesus Christ! It's like taking your life into your hands when you drive with it.
Really? Oh, that bad?
Man. Oh, fucking.
So he used up all his skill in beer?
Scary is all get out.
Oh, that's actually, I don't know why that's satisfying. I hate when people are like, oh yeah, he plays an instrument and he speaks multiple languages and he's really good looking. Like, oh God, I hate that guy.
Palmer doesn't have any of that. He's got his knowledge of metallurgy and brewing, and that's it.
He's an idiot savant.
Oh yeah.
That's so, God, I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight.
He's a wonderful person. And he's willing to drive. You just don't want to get in that car. He drives like a crazy man. Scares the crap out of me every time we drive.
Is he? Well,
I'm a very aggressive driver. He's a very free-spirited driver. I don't know.
Well, because there's two types of shitty drivers. There's aggressive, and they actually know what they're doing, and they're good drivers, but they scare people. That's me. And then there's the timid, I suck at driving, and I'm going 54 on the freeway, and I'm scared because big rigs are blowing by me.
Yeah, he's not scared. I think he does not fear death when he grabs that steering wheel. It's pretty much like, hey, I'm getting there. I don't know.
Okay, but just never ride with him.
Every time I've ridden with him, it's been scary.
Okay,
so I love John. He's wonderful. But I mean, didn't he back out of the driveway at the old studio, hit a parked car?
Oh, he did.
Yeah. I mean, he's great. He's a wonderful person. I love him. He's smart. He's kind. He's funny.
Right. You were not attacking his character. Right.
But I do not want to ride with him. I'm always like, I'll drive.
You sure your wife doesn't want to drive?
I'll carry you piggyback.
Let's take a donkey.
Yeah, let's do something. Let's just stay here. No, he's wonderful, but don't ride with him.
It's good to know. Well, we're always looking for rule of thumbs and ways to just sort of lock out and answer questions.
Yes.
Rule of thumb, don't ride with John.
There you go.
On to the next question.
That's the next one, yeah.
From Rob Vralo, I don't know how to pronounce VR. Where's the vowel? Anyway, I've been buying hops in bulk after harvest and vacuum sealing them in 1-ounce packages. I'm wondering how long these will last in the freezer before I shouldn't bother with them. Like, do the aromas fade? You know, the alpha acids, flavor? Thanks. Keep up the good work.
You know, pelletized hops that are properly packaged early on, you know, nitrogen flushed, those Mylar bags that are oxygen impervious and light impervious, all that, like more beer does. Those things you can throw in the freezer, and as long as you keep them extremely cold, they last a long time. I think there was a recent study about hops and storage times, and they found like 5 years down the road there was very little drop off in aroma and flavor in hops.
Wow.
Whether it be whole cone or as long as they were stored properly. So nitrogen flush, oxygen permeable, impervious bags, and probably sealed and stored in a freezer. They were great when and that had been my experience with the hops from More Beer. I'd open those packs up 3-4 years later, and it's just like new. I was shocked.
That is amazing.
Now, if you don't freeze them, at Heretic we had hop freezers, and when we moved to the new place, we didn't have the hop freezers when we set up when we got to the new place. So we stored the hops in our cold box for product storage. It's like 35 degrees. And when you're storing, a sealed bag, like these Mylar bags, and they're sealed, the hops are fine at that kind of temperature. You can get, I think, 6 months or a year, 2 years out of them before they're open. Once they're opened and the oxygen touches them, then you have a much shorter time frame. But the colder you store them, the longer they last. So for our open bags, now we got the freezers set up again. You can put your open bags in the freezer, and that really helps. So long story short, depending on how he's prepped them, he put them in the vacuum sealer. I mean, there's still quite a bit of oxygen in there. Vacuum sealing, I'm sure certainly helps. And then, if you put them in the freezer, I imagine they're good for a year. I don't think they're going to go bad, that quick. But, the more you can do to protect them from oxygen and oxidation, the longer they can last. So less oxygen, colder temperatures, they last longer.
If you have it open, does it leave it prone to freezer burn or, build up on it? I guess, does that depend on the freezer?
Yeah, right. It's going to depend on the freezer. They have the frost free and things like that, which they warm up. They have cycles of warming where they melt off the frost and then they cool back down again. But, it's really, the oxygen accessing them. And when you have a bag and you just roll up the end, that slows down the oxygen, but doesn't really seal it off completely. So that can be an issue too.
So the hops that you added to the Brewcaster Challenge beer, the Black IPA, were those sitting just out in room temperature? Because they were old, weren't they?
Yeah,
that was the problem.
There was a nasty bag of old hops.
In room temperature?
We weren't using. No, it was in the fridge, but it was something we don't use, which is why I threw it in the beer.
So how old were those, for reference?
Couple of years old, I think.
Couple of years?
Yeah.
And they'd been sitting in the fridge the whole time?
They were actually kind of brown.
Were they really? God, what a jerk you are. Well, you're like sabotaging yourself. It's almost like I hypnotized you.
No, I love you so much. I did not want you to fail. I would crush your soul.
Well, what soul?
Your soulless soul.
Mm-hmm. So, and those had they been in the fridge that entire time? I'm just trying to figure out if the fridge is effective at all. I mean, it sounds like they have to be frozen.
Right. I mean, it's the fridge will, the colder the temperature, the longer it takes for chemical reactions, oxidation, things to happen. So every 10 degrees C, lower cuts the rate of staling by half. So, colder, and you'll be better. Every 10 degrees up, you're doubling the rate of reaction.
Are there people who've rigged up like chest freezers to get colder than normal? Like, how cold could you really store these things? -10?
Yeah, I imagine you could get a freezer to go lower. They have, like lab freezers, cryogenic freezers, and things like that. Super cold freezers, and then they have like -80 freezers and all that they use for storing yeast and things.
So, what about for breweries where cost is not an option, like your Sierra Nevadas? Is that how they store their hops in bulk?
No, I don't think so. They have a freezer room, as I recall. I haven't checked out their hop room in a long time, so I'm not sure how they're doing it right now. But they had like a freezer room that they were storing their hops in, and they get leaf hops. They buy them in big, burlap blocks, bales of hops. So,
you want to lock out with something, like keep your hops cold. I'm Jamil Zanishev. Remember, we gotta lock out every question. No,
keep your hops cold. Yeah, colder
right.
The better.
Next one from Peter Clements. I've had 2 failed attempts at 100% Brett beers. They were both 3-gallon, 1044 original gravity, pitched 1,000 milliliter starter of Brett C, fermented at room temperature, 68. After 4 weeks in primary, they both smelled acetic and went down the drain. What am I doing wrong?
Too much oxygen. When Brett gets an abundance of oxygen, it produces acetic acid, which is vinegar, and you don't want your beers to taste of vinegar. There's a lot of people brewing sours and Brett beers in America today that believe in doing them quick and fast, and they're making these very what you get is acetone. When you go warmer and faster, you get acetone.
Is that the nail polish thing?
Yeah, nail polish.
God, that is so horrible,
isn't it?
Yes.
So the Belgian brewers, they're all like, you don't go above 20 C, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. You never do that. And the reason they say that is because generally you end up with a beer that has a lot more acetone character. And so you want to avoid that. You want to go slow and cooler, and you'll get a much nicer beer. But I've run across people who are making these beers, and they're just saying, well, it's an American sour. It's an American Brett beer. It's like, you mean it tastes like shit?
Yeah, therefore what?
Full of acetone and vinegar? No. That's not a good beer. But people are drinking it and going, oh, yeah, it's got a real, bite to it, and it's really sour. And it's like, well, it tastes like vinegar and nail polish remover.
Yes.
Horrible.
I've had those where those two characteristics are really present, and I often think that maybe it's because homebrewers are blinded to their own beer's characteristics because they're stoked that they brewed a sour beer, and so maybe they're not tasting what everybody else is tasting. You know what I mean? You can be blinded to the quality of your own beer. And that nail polish, there's just nothing less pleasant in beer.
A lot of people, they taste it and they're like, oh, no, that's how it should taste.
Really?
I'm like, no, you just don't know what you're talking about. It's just terrible. So it takes time, and that's one of the things. And so temperature, and then also oxygen. You're getting too much oxygen in there, you're going to get acetic acid. It's going to taste like vinegar. So cooler temperatures, and just give it time, let it work slowly, and limit the oxygen, and you should be good.
How do we avoid oxygen? I'm sure you've said it a million times.
Yeah, seal off the container, as you can. The airlocks and stuff that are available, they tend to, while you're fermenting, a lot of times people will introduce a lot of oxygen and then a lot of headspace. If you minimize the amount of headspace, like in a carboy, towards the neck, it gets much narrower. If you fill it up to in that point, then your surface area that the oxygen can actually reach the beer and fuse into the beer is, like 2 inches across. If you don't fill it that high, then all of a sudden the surface area where the oxygen can get in is, 14 inches across or 12 inches across, whatever it is. So it's a much bigger surface area. You get more oxygen in, you're going to get more acetic. You get, up into the neck. So what I like to do is do your initial fermentation, and where things are active, a little lower, but then rack it into a smaller carboy. So you start in like a 6, 6.5, rack it into a 5, and then you can fill it up to the neck for the long, slow maturation period where it's developing a lot of this character.
And you want no oxygen in that secondary, right?
It depends what you're looking for. Very tiny amount of micro oxygen, that can help, but it tends to be too much. So when they're looking at these giant wood vats that they age a lot of these Belgian beers in, like a Flanders or something like that, the surface area to volume is very small. So while you're getting oxygen across the wood, it's not the same as in a smaller barrel. A smaller barrel, you're getting more oxygen through that, because of the surface area ratio to liquid. So when people are doing these small little barrels, they're getting a lot of oxygen in. They need to be careful of that. If you're doing the carboy thing, different carboy caps leak more than others. The Better Bottle, they did tests on the various stoppers and carboy caps to show how much oxygen goes through, and it was very fascinating. And their stopper is actually pretty darn effective, and I think they have that all on their website. So
is there no stopper that's 100% effective? Do all let in something?
Depending on how it's sealed. You could also try sealing off with, there's, some sort of wrap, or, you could wax seal it or something like that. I wouldn't completely, seal it off against in case if the Brett's still working, it's going to create some gas, can create pressure. You don't want to have the thing explode. So you need to have it where it can release some pressure if necessary. So that tends to result in some oxygen getting in. But again, if that surface area is small, very little oxygen will get in.
What about purging your vessels with CO2 before? Like this guy said, he had it in primary for 4 weeks. Before he put it into the primary, right. What if he purged it with CO2?
You certainly can. He must have a lot more oxygen getting in there. So I would wonder if his starter was like a stirred starter, getting a lot of oxygen in, and was he got a lot of acetic in that maybe, and then pitched that in, and the acetic's just going to carry over. But he also might be getting a lot of oxygen, or he oxygenated his wort and pitched the Brett, and maybe he's also got a very loose. Some people just throw a foil cap on it. But if you got a lot, I would say, and it sounded like in a fairly short period of time, I'd say too warm and too much oxygen to start with.
Okay. Just one last question, because I'm curious about it too. Uh-huh. If you, because it says, generic beer instructions, they want you to oxygenate your wort. So if you're doing a Brett beer, should you just not do that?
If you want to grow Brett, you give it lots of oxygen, and it grows with massive amounts of oxygen. And you can, if you're trying to grow it. But when you're trying to ferment something with Brett, I think you can give it a little bit of oxygen to start. I wouldn't give it a lot.
Okay. How do you measure that? What does a little and a lot mean?
Unless you're going to get an oxygen meter, I would go, half of what you would for a typical ale. I just so don't want to taste vinegar in my beers.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I don't. It's so hard to believe that there's people that they don't really want to. They just don't want to talk shit.
It's just nasty.
All right, you want to do the next one, or you want to take a break first?
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll get into more of your questions right after this.
I-10, Getting tired of that same old handcrafted beverages day after day? Are you looking for something with more diversity than your normal beer? Fellow BN Army member Michael Fairbrother, owner of Moonlight Meadery, is reviving an entire beverage category, mead.
The meads at Moonlight Meadery are all handcrafted from the finest honey on the market and are perfect for any occasion, like weddings, baby showers, or...
Excuse me? Mead is not your average girly drink, mister, and Moonlight Meads can be enjoyed anytime, anywhere. Football games with the guys.
Yeah.
Barbecues with the guys.
Yeah.
Operating power tools with the guys.
Yeah.
Actually, sir, that's really dangerous.
Good point, son.
Next time you have something to celebrate or are just looking for a new tasting experience, pick up a bottle of mead from Moonlight Meadery. Now in 21 states, making over 60 varieties of mead from dry, semi-sweet to sweet.
Break out of that craft beer lull. Grab a bottle of Moonlight Mead. Can't find some? Then ask. No, make that demand some.
Yeah!
What'd you get? More brewing ingredients?
Yep. You know what I love about Brewmaster's Warehouse?
The $6.99 shipping?
Well, yeah, but...
the in-store classes for beginning brewers.
Yeah, that's cool, but...
The Brew Builder. Creating and saving your recipes online is awesome!
No, yes, but...
The cheese-making supplies.
No.
Oh, the wine-making supplies. The distilling equipment and liquor flavorings.
All that stuff is awesome, yes, but what I really love is that the guy who runs it is totally hot. And that Brew Builder software is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Brewmaster's Warehouse brings you flat rate shipping on great equipment and ingredients to make beer, wine, cheese, and spirits at brewmasterswarehouse.com. And if you're in Georgia, stop by Brewmaster's Warehouse Monday through Saturday from 10 to 6. Visit brewmasterswarehouse.com today because it's totally hot.
Oh, yeah.
A vial of White Labs yeast is the key to your best beer. When you open a vial of White Labs yeast, you're giving your beer its best chance for a perfect fermentation. In addition to their already incredible variety of yeast, White Labs is proud to announce WLP 90, San Diego's super yeast, now available year-round. WLP 90 is super clean, super fast fermenting, with low esters and has a neutral flavor and aroma profile. It's alcohol tolerant and highly flocculent. For more of the latest White Labs news, click over to whitelabs.com, where you can read reviews of yeast, learn in the lab section, and join the customer club. And if you should find yourself in San Diego, White Labs has a brand new training facility for craft brewers and home brewers alike. Whitelabs.com. Discover yeast, nutrients, enzymes, and more for commercial breweries, home brewers, and homebrew stores. White Labs. It's all in the vial.
Hi, I'm Jamil Zainasheff, and in addition to my work on the Brewing Network, I write the Style Profile column in every issue of Brew Your Own magazine.
Hi, I'm Sean Paxton, and when I'm not prepping for the Home Brewed Chef on the Brewing Network, you can find me writing articles on how to cook with your home brew for Brew Your Own magazine.
Greetings, cretins. This is John Palmer, and when I'm not writing for Brew Your Own, I'm reading it.
John Palmer, Sean Paxton, Jamil Zainasheff. If you love listening to them on the Brewing Network, you'll love reading their articles, tips, and recipes in the pages of Brew Your Own magazine. Join Jamil, John, and Sean 8 times a year in Brew Your Own. And when you subscribe to BYO on the Brewing Network website, half of your subscription price goes right back to the BN to support great beer and food programming. So sign up for Brew Your Own magazine through the BN website today so you can listen and read your way to better homebrew.
Back to your hosts, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. Putting the testicles in technical. This is Brew Strong.
Speaking of testicles, how about that fine sponsor, Adam and Eve? I mean, we're speaking of testicles here.
Yeah, but you got to know your listener. So speaking of boobies, although no one was speaking of it.
Speaking of testicles, I mean, our listeners probably have one hand on their testicles right now. Chances are,
pretending they're boobies.
80% have a hand on their testicles. I'm just saying that's pretty much what it boils down to. Our fine sponsor, Adam and Eve, they sponsored us for a long time. What they've got going is a great website full of thousands and thousands of products. If you use the offer code Jamil, Jamil, you can get yourself 50% off just about any one item. You get yourself free shipping. You get to choose 3 free adult DVDs from categories such as
big boobs,
and
testicles,
testicles and big boobs, gay, anal, Asian, amateur, MILFs, all sorts of great categories, lots of interesting stuff. It's not like they're giving you the goat fucker DVDs. You actually
Unless you want them.
Unless you want them. Yeah, they got that category too. You get to choose which 3 free DVDs you get. And then they throw in a free extra sensual gift. And you get all that for using the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at adamandeve.com. Again, use that code. You get the one item 50% off. You get the free sensual gift. You get to choose 3 free DVDs. And you get free shipping on the whole thing. So it costs you very little. You get a ton of stuff. And seems to be a solid, upstanding company.
It costs it's like, I don't understand how anybody there's making any money. Like
This is a total lost leader thing. They're just trying to get you to check it out. And then you're like, wow, they do have a lot of stuff here. Here's some stuff I can use.
Yeah, you'll be shocked. It's cheap and it's good stuff.
Yeah, cheap and easy. That's how we like them. Cheap and easy. Is that how you like your women? Cheap and easy?
No, I like them expensive and impossible. That's how I roll.
That opens up your selection dramatically.
They demand a lot and give nothing.
Yes.
Okay. Back to the questions from Matt Geltzier. Question about large late hop additions, whirlpools, and hop utilization. Jamil, you note on Mr. Malty up to 15% utilization in a whirlpool, but you don't specify the time of the whirlpool to get that utilization.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, a recipe may call for a large charge at 5 minutes with a subsequent whirlpool of various lengths. This process will yield more isophala? What is this? Isolfa.
Isoalpha acid. Isomerized alpha acids.
Got it. Then without whirlpooling. Besides using a consistent formula plus trial and error or sending out my homebrew to a lab, is there any consensus on IBU formula adjustments for these late hop additions?
So none of the formulas work. It is impossible to come up with a formula that will work. And I keep telling people this, and they're like, oh, no, I think, it's just a matter of, brewing all this wort and testing it all and all that stuff, and then you'd have a formula that works. It's like, no, you wouldn't, because fermentation changes how much isomerized alpha acids make it through to the final beer. So the amount of yeast you pitch, what kind of nutrients, what kind of temperature, what kind of activity, the fermenter dimensions, all that stuff determine what your final IBUs are going to be. So it's always just a guess, and there's no formula that's really going to help you. So that's one thing. The only way to really know is to test at the end. That said, when the recipe is simple, I found the Rager formula actually works really well for us. It matches up. We did our shallow grave, and I'm like, okay, 33 IBUs. We measured it after it was brewed, and it was 33 IBUs. I'm like, okay, cool. So based on our fermentation and everything that we do, and I knew it would be fairly close to that. It turned out to be spot on. But so we just got lucky on that one. As far as, the whirlpool length, he's absolutely right. The longer the whirlpool length, at a high temperature, the isomerization just keeps going. So if you, let's say you're boiling your wort, you shut off the burner, everything's real close to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. You throw in a handful of hops, and you decide to leave it sit there for an hour. You're pretty much getting close to your high utilization. Let's say utilization normally in a boil for an hour, you're going to get maybe, depending on a lot of factors, you're going to get maybe 28%. If you just throw them in and let it sit there and it sits hot for an hour, you're probably going to get 20%. So you're going to get quite a bit of utilization. It is going to just continue to get more bitter. So the thing you need to do is, chill the wort as soon as possible. You're going to lose all those delicate flavors. It's going to get more and more bitter. So immersion chillers are really good for homebrewing. If I could use an immersion chiller commercially, I just might, because you get to stop the isomerization. You get to trap a lot of those aromatic compounds, because you're cooling the whole mass down really quick. So that's why I do a whirlpool chiller and things like that. So, yeah, it really depends on how long. If your whirlpool sits hot for a minute, you're probably getting very little IBU contribution out of it. If you let it sit for an hour, you're probably getting close to 20% or so. So it just varies with the amount of time.
So you're saying you would, in the pro brewery, there's nothing going into the wort to cool it. It's the vessel that cools it, right?
You go through a heat exchanger, a plate heat exchanger. Like Blickman has a Therminator plate heat exchanger. It works wonderfully at rapidly chilling wort down to fermentation temperature. But the wort that's sitting hot in the kettle during that time, it is getting more bitter, and you're losing some of the aromatics.
Now, is there a reason you would you're like, well, I would prefer an immersion chiller at the pro brewery if there was such a product existed?
Yeah, for certain beers, sure.
Why?
Just because, again, you could lock in all the aromatic compounds, stop the bittering from happening. When we were first brewing Evil Twin, it took us 2 hours to knock out from the whirlpool to the fermenter. The heat exchanger, but we were able to keep up. We were eventually able to get it down to about an hour and a half to transfer into 30 barrels into a fermenter. And so what I would normally do with Evil Twin was add a massive amount of late hops. Because they sat hot in the whirlpool, we had to take out that massive amount of late hops and switch it over to dry hopping, which is a different character.
It was getting too bitter?
It was getting way too bitter, yeah. So now at our new brewery, I spent $10,000 on a really nice heat exchanger, so we can knock out as fast as we can pump the wort. So we can pump about a barrel a minute, and it chills it down to whatever temperature we want at a barrel a minute.
So the problem at the old brewery was that the heat exchanger was just not powerful enough?
Yeah, it wasn't a very good heat exchanger and didn't have enough plates. And so, with this, in 30 minutes we can, have our entire batch chilled down. So it's much less of an issue with that. So the hotter it sits, the more bitter it gets, and the more these delicate hop aromatics get lost. If you want to use a heat exchanger, plate heat exchanger, like the Blickman Therminator, it's a great heat exchanger. I would also get a Blickman hop rocket, so you can do like a hop back. So you can put some leaf hops in there and run the wort through there just before it gets to the heat exchanger, and you'll get some of those great aromatics, and then it'll get locked in as it goes through the heat exchanger. So that's another way of doing it without doing an immersion chiller.
All right, next one from Russell Holland. The Nalgene bottles. What is that?
Nalgene bottles?
Nalgene, what are those?
It's a brand name of a plastic type of bottle. I keep just calling them Nalgenes, but they call them, it's like just a plastic bottle.
Okay.
Used for camping and for lab work and different things.
All right, well, those things you use, he asks, they are the laboratory ones or the more widely available ones?
It depends on what you're using them for.
Okay, well, he says, I have a 1,000 milliliter Nalgene Eastman Triton copolyester, quote, BPA-free bottle. He said, looks like it's intended for ladies to use at the gym. That is supposed to be good for up to 212 degrees, and he wants to pour boiling water in it to sanitize it before rinsing yeast.
Yeah, for ladies to use at the gym. A lot of things flashed through my mind when you said that. No, that's not what we're talking about. The kind you use for the lab work, it tends to be a polypropylene, wide mouth, so you can get the yeast in and out much easier. A narrow mouth, wide mouth polypropylene. Polypropylene is good to a much higher temperature, so you can actually autoclave them. I guess you could use something like that. If it's good to 212 and you put 212 in it, it's probably going to start to get very soft. So I'd kind of avoid that. And the ones I'm talking about, you get them for a couple of bucks. I mean, it's not like they're radically expensive. You go to some of the online suppliers, look for wide mouth polypropylene plastic containers. Don't look for Nalgene. Look for wide mouth polypropylene.
Okay, he does say down here that he remembers hearing Palmer say that you should use polypropylene bottles. He said, "Is copolyester okay though?"
I don't know. It's another plastic. I think that as far as is it will it hold liquid? Can it be made sanitary? Sure. It can't be sterilized, but it can be made sanitary. So then, I guess by those measures, it would be fine. If it holds liquid and it can be made sanitary, you can use it for yeast. But, if you're really growing yeast and you want something sterile, it has to be something you can autoclave.
What about plastic leaching flavors into beer or leaching characteristics into yeast? Do you think that's more of like psychological? You see it coming out of that, and so you start tasting it, but you wouldn't know otherwise?
Right. I think a lot of they're newly manufactured plastics, when they're fresh plastics, they do exude a lot of compounds that I suppose could flavor something. So if you have it's like a new water bottle, and you fill it, if you don't rinse it out, you just fill it with water and try and drink it, you'll taste some of that manufacturing stuff in there. So, rinse it thoroughly, use, soapy water, and get it cleaned out. Then I think it's fine. I don't think you're going to get much of anything.
Even if you put super hot and it gets soft and it's 212 degree, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the hotter it is, the more of these plasticizers, these compounds that make, plastics pliable and all that, leach out. Eventually plastics, when all that stuff leaches out, they become brittle, right? So you've seen plastic bottles that have been in the sun a long time. Mm-hmm. Some of they'll just crumble because a lot of that stuff has been lost. So that stuff does come out, and the hotter it is, the more of that stuff comes out. So, you're getting some of that stuff. I think if you wash it thoroughly, I doubt you're getting anything in your beer that you can taste.
Okay, this one is from Rostabama. This is a quick one. How frequently are off flavors imparted from the CO2 used to keg? Should I be using an inline CO2 purifier?
I would be shocked if anybody was, unless you're getting your CO2 from like the ass of a cow or something. I think you're not.
I think that's methane.
Yeah, right.
Can you carb a beer with methane?
Well, carbonation by its definition is used with carbon dioxide.
Oh.
So you could methanoxide it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could force any gas into solution. Whether it'll stay once you've removed pressure, and how long it'll stay, that's a whole other thing. They do like nitrogen, all sorts of stuff, oxygen. It all dissolves into a liquid. Carbon dioxide is what you want, but most carbon dioxide that you can get in tanks, it's nice and pure. I can't imagine what kind of skeezy place this guy's getting carbon dioxide that he would worry about it. Even, you should never need to worry about putting a filter in there.
You ever used one, an inline CO2 filter?
No.
You ever seen one used?
Not in brewing. I mean, I'm sure maybe somebody's using it.
I wonder what for.
There can be oils or things like that. I mean, there's some impurities in it, but really, there's so many other things to worry about before you get to that point. I'd worry more. People don't worry enough about fermentation and sanitizing things and that aspect of it. They don't worry enough about their malt and their water, and and even those things I think are low compared to people don't even focus on temperature control their fermentation, and they worry about a lot of other things. And the very first thing you should be worrying about is temperature. And take it from Scott, who knows? He's used a wet T-shirt, and won with it.
Yes,
so temperature control and fermentation, that's going to make a great beer. And I mean, give me the nastiest CO2 you want, and as long as the beer is well fermented, I bet you're not going to taste it. So it's very low on the priorities. If it makes you feel better, it certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I guess it's just these guys. There's no. They want to keep paying attention to the details, and after a while, they run out of details to pay attention to, so they start hunting for it.
I would agree with that, and sometimes you want to spend money on some toys,
right?
Do that stuff. Yeah, if you enjoy it, certainly do it. It's not going to hurt anything.
You ever heard of a pro brewery doing that? Is anybody filtering their CO2?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure some of the bigger ones are. Yeah. Nothing I would ever worry about. I mean, we get our CO2 delivered in a truck to get 1,000-pound dewar that they fill up, and fine by me.
How do you get your methane delivered?
By a cow. It comes. They back the cow up backs up to the door, and then just cuts loose.
That's the one thing I've taken away from these shows for sure is
methane.
Yes, cow farts. No, is that you control your fermentation temperature. You sanitize your equipment and you control your fermentation temperature, and that's it. I mean, it's just going to be drinkable unless you took a leak into your secondary. I mean, right? I mean, that's really what you should be focusing.
Yeah.
I just had that conversation with I forget who. They were not beer people, and someone was talking about a Mr. Beer kit, and I gave them the spiel you sort of, and it's true. Like, it's because beginners use them and they don't know what they're doing. And if you give a good brewer a Mr. Beer kit and they control their fermentation temperature, it's going to be a pretty good beer.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's do a couple more after a break. Yeah.
All right. Back after this.
BN Army, HopTech has a great discount waiting for you. Do you often find it difficult to find specific specialty ingredients for your homebrew recipes? Well, listen to this. HopTech stocks 59 different grains to choose from, 39 varieties of pellet hops, and 8 kinds of whole leaf hops. And HopTech not only carries Y yeast and White Labs yeast for you, but also Fermentus, 04, 5, 6, 23, 33, and T58 Belgian yeast, plus Cooper's, Nottingham, and Windsor yeasts. Got your recipe ready to go? Pick up some great brew gear like new long and short sleeved shirts, games, and more. HopTech's new website is being updated every day with new items. If you don't see it, call the shop. They're open 6 days a week. BN Army and AHA members get a 10% discount, and active military personnel get 15% off. Visit HopTech.com today for great selection, great service, and a great discount. HopTech.com.
Downtown Joe's, where everyone is welcome, especially if you like drinking and tasting beer. Head brewer Colin Kaminsky's favorite beers are the Tantric IPA and the Double Secret Probation IPA. But you'll have loads of others to choose from when you redeem your exclusive Brewing Network savings. Downtown Joe's is the best brewery destination and the hottest night spot in Napa. Colin invites all homebrewers and fans of craft beer to stop by and enjoy the great food and beer. Whether you're in the mood for riverside dining, live music, or just hanging out at the bar to meet a person of the opposite sex or a person of the same sex, Downtown Joe's has exactly what you're looking for. And now just mention the Brewing Network to receive $1 off your beer at Downtown Joe's. That's right, take $1 off every one of their great selection of craft beers, including the Lazy Summer Wheat, Golden Thistle Porter, and the Triple Dog Dare You. Come to Downtown Joe's and enjoy the laid-back atmosphere of Napa's best brew pub. Visit downtownjoes.com right now for current beers, the live music schedule, or to drool over their delicious menu items. Downtown Joe's, your neighborhood brew pub where everyone is welcome.
Tonight is the night.
We bring the creature to life, Dr. Blickmanstein?
Yes, J.P. Gore. Everything is perfect for my next fermented creation.
My doctor, the storm is too far away. We'll never have enough power to isomerize the creature's alpha acid.
Yes, J.P. Gore, we will. For I have in my possession the Tower of Power.
Blickman's new Tower of Power is the evolution of automation. Control hot liquor, sparge, and mash temps like a pro. The Tower of Power is a high-quality gas-fired rim system that works with your current brewing setup. With ultra precision, the tower can hold your mash to 1/2 of a degree Fahrenheit. Precision and repeatability. The Tower of Power is the answer to automatic, fast ramp times. See more at BlickmanEngineering.com. Bring your next creation to life with the Tower of Power.
Dr. Blickmanstein, with the Tower of Power, you can probably give me an afternoon at the pub to enjoy a pint.
Don't be silly, J.P. Gore. We have beer to brew.
When I order a beer, I want my server to know more about it than I do. I want someone who enjoys good beer and loves helping others enjoy it too. I want someone who knows how to pour a perfect pint for any beer style. I want a Cicerone. The Cicerone certification program is creating the type of people who help you enjoy great beer. Home brewers and craft beer lovers know beer is more flavorful and complex than ever, and it takes some serious knowledge to store and serve beer right. Cicerones know beer. There are 3 levels in the Cicerone program: Certified Beer Server, Certified Cicerone, and Master Cicerone. Cicerones are truly the sommeliers of beer. The best beer locations have a certified Cicerone on staff. Relaxed and unpretentious, Cicerones are tested on storing and serving beer, beer styles, flavor and tasting, the brewing process and ingredients, and pairing food with beer. Learn more about your next beer guide at cicerone.org. Certified Cicerone, because it takes top talent to present a perfect pint.
All right, BN Army, it's trivia time. What's the only homebrew shop with over 1,000 recipe kits, $4.99 shipping on orders over $100, and is also home of the Wolf shirt? The one and only answer is Austin Homebrew Supply. For over 20 years, they've specialized in creating recipes such as the best-selling Texas Blonde Ale, Apocalypso, Hop Bomb 2.0, and Double Chocolate Stout. And they just recently unveiled their small grain kits that produce 1 gallon of beer. Visit AustinHomebrew.com to browse their extensive catalog of equipment and ingredients. They also have mini-clone recipes of your favorite commercial beers. They're the exclusive retailer of Brew Vent Yeast Fuel as well, Yeast Nutrient, and the all-new Bodybuilder. Follow Austin Homebrew Supply on Google Plus to participate in video hangouts on popular brewing topics. So visit AustinHomebrew.com today and make sure you sign up for their weekly email with news and specials. Austin Homebrew Supply, AustinHomebrew.com.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're enjoying a Palmerless studio. I think the whole level of methane is lower today. Just saying. I wonder where you get your methane. That's where you get your methane.
Let's do a couple more quick ones. This one's from Tom in Newbury Park, Cali. Hey guys, everything I've read defines the BU-GU ratio as IBU divided by the original gravity units. Mm-hmm. This seems really strange to me. Wouldn't it make more sense to compute the ratio based on the finishing gravity units? Wouldn't you want to balance bitterness against residual sweetness and not starting sweetness? Mm-hmm. What's the rationale?
Well, I've just seen people say this all the time. They're like, oh, you got to take in where it finishes and all that. And initially I thought, well, yeah, there's some truth to that, but in fact, I'm not so sure. And I continue to use the BU-OG ratio when I write the articles for Brew Your Own magazine. And what it is you divide the IBUs by the decimal portion of the original gravity. So if it's, 20 IBUs and you've got a 1060 beer, you do 20 divided by 60 and you get 0.33 or whatever it would be. And that's your ratio. The higher the ratio, the more bitter the beer. The lower the ratio, the less bitter the beer. Something like an IPA might be around a 1. Something like a Munich Helles would be around a 4 or 3. The thing, though, about trying to use the finishing gravity is a couple of things. One is, you may not have a prediction of that, when you brew a new beer. OG, finishing gravity, you may not know, right? And the other thing is, finishing gravity is not a determiner of sweetness in a beer. A lot of people think, this was the old internet thing and very basic, homebrew shop thing of, the higher the finishing gravity, the sweeter the beer. That is not true. You can have a very dry beer that finishes higher. You can have a very sweet beer that finishes lower. We brewed a beer called Worry. It's a Belgian triple aged Chardonnay barrels. Finished out at like 1 Plato, half a degree Plato. Like very, very dry. But it has a sweetness to it. It has that heart Chardonnay character. It has an alcohol sweetness. It has a a very, very sweet character to it. I give some to another brewer. They're like, "Oh man, dude, this didn't attenuate. You need to attenuate out your Belgians more." I'm like, "No, that is super dry. It has a sweet character to it because of the honey-like qualities of the Chardonnay barrels that we used, the alcohol sweetness. So it seems sweet, but it's in fact quite dry."
So you're talking about perception
quite
of
low.
sweetness.
Yeah, and it's quite low in its finishing gravity. I mean, once the Brett worked on it, it's probably below 1,000. It's maybe like a wine in a negative. There are wines that seem sweet, yet their finishing gravity is very low. It's below 1. Yet you can have a beer that has a higher finishing gravity, these dextrins that have no sweetness to them, and you can finish much higher, yet it seems dry. So using finishing gravity, I think, starting gravity may not be any more perfect, but it's, something that's been used and something that can be a fairly decent predictor of, at least, because you have it at the beginning of your brew, whereas, finishing gravity you may not have. So when you add the hops, you don't have your finishing gravity. So that's why it's nice to use the starting gravity, I think. So there you go.
Okay, but to put a finer point on the sweetness, like if it finishes higher and tastes not as sweet as a beer that finished lower that tastes sweeter, that's purely perception, because physically particles or whatever, for lack of a better term, there are more in the higher finishing beer that would make it sweeter, but it doesn't seem as sweet, right? This is all about perception.
Right, but the stuff that's making up the residual gravity is not necessarily sweet. There are long chain sugars that are not sweet. They are dextrins. It's just a compound that has no sweetness to it. It's like they're making all these fake sugars now, or they're taking these compounds and tweaking them with like chlorine, and then all of a sudden it's really super sweet. It's how it interacts with your tongue. These compounds, some things have a much higher sweetness than others. Certain alcohols have a sweetness to them. The higher finishing gravity doesn't mean that there's sweeter stuff in there. You're not just tasting it. There's compounds in there that aren't sweet. And the simple sugars tend to ferment out. So if something, depends on the kinds of sugars that are residual as well.
So what if you had a beer that finished, it finished high, a high gravity, but you wanted it to, and you purposely did that because you're brewing like a sweet stout or something, but it wasn't coming across as sweet as you want it to? What could you do?
You use less hops, less bittering. And, one of the things is, and I think the reason people got onto this, higher finishing gravity equals a sweeter beer, is because people were not fermenting their beers well. When this whole thing started, and the knowledge around the homebrew shops and the internet was, it finishes higher, it's a sweeter beer, because most people were not fully attenuating their beers out anyways. They weren't getting good fermentation, so the beers didn't quite finish fermenting, and so there was a lot of sweetness left over. If you fully attenuate them out and they've consumed all these simple sugars, the beers don't taste so sweet.
Got it. Okay, let's do one final one here. Matt from Virginia. Good day, boners. I'm looking for tips on how to brew beer quickly, and most importantly, how to determine if something is finished fermenting. Speaking of our last question, don't give me any BS about being patient and waiting an extra day. I'm already doing that, and you know what it is like to be thirsty now. Many of the pro brewers talk about how quickly they are producing their beer. Are there economies of scale that we just cannot achieve as homebrewers? I have good practices for producing beer quickly. Proper pitch rate and oxygen, low pitch temperature, free rise slowly, and finish high. But when my beer is finishing at 72, there's still a bunch of stuff floating around. Is it in suspension because the temperature is high and there's CO2 off-gassing, raising stuff into solution? Or does it suggest the yeast are still cleaning up? He's tired of waiting that extra day. What's up?
Well, it's a little bit of both. And the way that pro brewers finish their beers quickly is filtration. So if you jam the beer through a filter, you strip all that stuff out, it's ready to go. That's how they do it quick. If you are letting it settle with time. It takes time. So there you go.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Good show. If you're listening live, stay tuned. We're going to do another one here. And if you get in that chat room, Scott will get your questions live for the next show, and we'll answer some of those. And if you are thinking about it, check out our great sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Check them out, blickmanengineering.com. Lots of cool stuff on their website, and a bunch of great guys out there. Let them know that you enjoy the fact that they support this show by send them an email or go to the next Homebrew Conference and tell them how great they are at their booth. They'll appreciate it, and we will too. Check out the Brewing Network store. There's lots of goodies in there. There's books, shirts, hats, glassware, growlers, all sorts of cool stuff. And when you buy that stuff, it all goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network and helps keep shows like this on the air. So go check it out. Till then, brew strong, everybody.
And up then.